Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Mountain Man Motorsports 200, which is the final race of 2024 for the Belly Up Sports Cup Series season. My name is David Westergreen. I am joined today, as always, except for last week, by David Huckleberry and Zach Evans. And as qualifying begins for the championship race, Zach, four drivers going to knock it out. Determine a champion. What do you think is going to happen tonight at Richmond?
I think the big question mark, of course, you see on the screen are four championship contenders. Mathieu Weeks against the trio of the Lake Norman drivers. And those Lake Norman cars were fast in our practice session. What will it take for Mathieu to overcome that advantage those Lake Norman cars have at the moment going into this race?
Yeah, the numbers clearly side with Lake Norman. If you are just joining us for the first time, Mathieu Weeks won the first round or race of this latest round of the playoffs to lock himself in. Ethan Stanley won round number two. Justin Wadsworth hit a walk-off win last week for his first career win in this series to lock himself into this championship race as a contender. Tyler Fode was the top points getter, beating out both Ethan Burrell and Tate Lytle. And that is how we set our final four for this championship grid. We'll only have, I believe, two colors on your pylon tonight, determining the championship four, and then all the rest of the drivers in the field. Should be an exciting race from Richmond tonight, I think, for sure. And short track, we've seen these drivers struggle with the handle at the flat and short racetracks in this next gen car. Zach, do you think that we'll see, I think, some caution flags from the difficulty of the handling of the cars tonight?
I do. I don't think it'll be as drastic as we saw at a track like Iowa. I think it'll be a little bit more manageable, but certainly we that is a common theme we see with these flat track races on the next gen platform here in the Elite Belly Up Sports Cup series, and I think we'll see some of that tonight as well here at Richmond.
I'm with you. I do think a lot of the feedback that we've received from the drivers tonight is that the car is handling pretty atrociously. It's not really in the track, is the feedback I saw. And a lot of guys complaining about the handle of this car. But at the end of the day, you got to drive what you're given and you got to stay within your means, keep a clean nose on it. And I think that that's how our champion will be determined tonight. Not a good qualifying lap as we're on him right now. Mathieu Weeks, the only one of our championship four to have set a lap time thus far. His first lap was not terribly quick. We'll see what he can do here on lap number two, but for now, it's not the best of first laps. I think he cleaned it up there in the second lap, and yeah, he will be up at the top of the board right now. So Weeks did get there. I was a little concerned with his angle going into turn one, but I think he was just sailing it in there, and he managed to knock it down perfectly. Aren't usually quite this early while qualifying is going on, but it's also the most important qualifying session of the season for a few drivers. Tyler Fode on track right now, going for a good starting spot to compete with Mathieu Weeks, who's currently sitting on the provisional pole. Ethan Stanley clocked in at 8th quickest. Tyler Fode clocks in at 15th quick. Or no, wait, that is not updated yet. Fode is going to
He is
be
third.
third quick. Yeah, third quick for Tyler Fode. Well, that drops Ethan Stanley to 11th fastest. Justin Wadsworth on track now. You saw his name flash by the bottom of your screen. The other championship four contender, Justin Wadsworth. There he is. We'll see what Wadsworth can do as he looks to time in. Pro Edge currently sitting 1, 2, 3 on the scoring pylon. Chad Frankenfield 4th. Tyler Fode currently 5th. There's our pylon. Sponsored by Belly Up Sports. We appreciate them and everything they've done for us this season. As Justin Wadsworth goes to finish his time at a 22.888. Wadsworth to the front. That's probably the pole lap right there. Oh, Scott Crump beat him out. right at the end. And Johnny Thomas clocks in at fourth. Looks like going late in the session was the move. Some of those guys that went a little bit earlier in the session, like Ethan Stanley, definitely should have gone a little bit later, it looks like. But let's bring in our championship four for a quick interview before we start tonight's race. I'll go ahead and grab the lowest driver, Ethan Stanley, and bring him to the booth. Ethan, one quick question before you get to going tonight. Starting a little bit further back than maybe you'd like, what is your plan heading into this race at Richmond?
Yeah, I completely just screwed up my qualifying lap. I've got to survive the first half, I'd say. Just make my way up front. Definitely at a disadvantage. It's going to be hard to pass here. I just need to save my tires, though. But yeah, we'll see.
Gotcha. Good luck tonight, Stanley.
Yeah, thanks.
Grab the second lowest qualifying championship four driver, Tyler Fody, and bring him to the booth. And Tyler, qualified ninth. What's your plan tonight, man?
Finish 8 spots better. Hopefully.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's super sketchy right now with the track. Really it's kind of tight in, but then really loose off. And if you try and push the entry, the fronts are locking real easy. So definitely on edge right now. I'm happy I'm going to be on the inside at least. I don't know how much that second line will come into play, but yeah, long race though. Hopefully we get some runs and this doesn't just turn into a bunch of sprints. Yeah, just got to keep it clean.
Gotcha. Good luck tonight, Tyler.
Appreciate it.
Grab the third highest qualifying championship driver, Mathieu Weeks, and the lone Pro Edge Toyota. Matthew, what's your plan going for championship number 3 tonight?
I think I'm gonna have to be better than I was last season. I let it get away early in the race and gave up too much time, and I just think I need to be a little bit better on that part and try to take the lead. I want to get in front of Crump and Wadsworth here. I think taking the lead is going to be the main goal. So I think that's it right there. Take the lead, take control, and keep the clean air on the car and no mistakes.
No mistakes. Good luck tonight, Matthew.
Thank you.
Send him down to Pro Edge Racing, and let's grab Justin Wadsworth, the top qualifier for Lake Norman Motorsports after the walk-off win last week. And Justin, what's your plan tonight heading into this championship race as top dog in qualifying of the championship four?
Yeah, not gonna lie, that was honestly my biggest goal coming into the race, was to hopefully qualify up front. I feel like that's been kind of a struggle for me throughout the season, and especially at a track like this where I feel like track position's so key. Hopefully I can just hang on to it and see how the race goes.
Sounds good. Good luck tonight, Justin. You're probably the underdog considering these guys up here, but qualifying shows it might be the other way around. Good luck.
All right, thanks, man. Hopefully we surprise people tonight.
That's right. Justin Wadsworth, after the walk-off win last week, will be starting from second. And we'll take a look at the starting lineup here tonight. For the rest of the field, as Scott Crump did win the pole there in qualifying, Justin Wadsworth qualifying in second beside him. Then it's Mathieu Weeks and Johnny Thomas in row 2, Tate Lytle and Gavin Hibbs in row 3, Ethan Burrell and Chad Frankenfield in row 4, Championship 4 contender and one-time Elite Cup Series champion Tyler Fody in row 5 alongside Leighton Norgard. Jeff Green and Corey Abbott are there in row 6.
In that 7th row, you see Chris Wright, Josh Adams. Row number 8, Seth Rawls, Brent Jones. Behind that, Trey Holmes rolls off 17th. Ethan Stanley starting from the 18th position as one of those contenders. Zach Rogers 19th, Jonathan Cutlip 20th, Jordan Owens 21st, Gerald Campbell 22nd, Justin Vandermarl will start 23rd, Andrew Rucker starting 24th.
In Rucker's final race in his Elite Cup Series career, at least for now. 25th will be Michael Goodman, 26th Ty McIntosh. Mark Rabilas starts 27th. Josh Clark starting 28th in his final Elite Cup Series race as a full-time driver for now. Casey Hatch starts 29th. Jesse Racimus will line up 30th. Ray Bracey 31st. Ryan Schold 32nd. And Dustin Dewar rounds out our 33-car field for the finale, the Mountain Man Motorsports 200 tonight. Now, pace car's about to roll off, Zach, but I did want to get your thoughts on last week's race. You know, Gerald and I called Wadsworth to a pretty massive upset win to lock himself into this championship for. It involved Tate Lytle and Ethan Stanley making some contact late. I don't know if whether you watched it or not. I didn't ask you if you were gonna. I didn't mention this question to you before, but what are your thoughts on Wadsworth making it over Burrell, Lytle, Jonathan Cutlip, some of those guys that have been running up front a little bit more all season?
Well, when I first saw Justin won, I had to crack the joke that, of course, the one night I wasn't in the booth was when the 6 car made it to victory lane, right? But certainly a huge win for Justin, even if it weren't a playoff win, because we had been talking about him all season, the runs he had been having, and the improvements he's made this season. Now he gets to add that win to the resume, but it also couldn't come at a better time, as we see it looks like Scott Crump will be choosing the outside for this initial start, and they do the little dance there on the front row. But man, huge win for Justin Wadsworth, and now he's got a chance to race for a championship here tonight.
It sure does, and you're right. The 6 car did win the one race that you weren't here, but it wasn't a fluke win. I think, the circumstances in which Justin Wadsworth picked up the win were a little bit fluky. He got the late caution, stayed on old tires, and got the caution flags behind him where fresh tires couldn't really take advantage. But that's not a fluky win if you've been following us all season. Justin Wadsworth's been at the front of the field, top 5, top 10, just about every race. It was a matter of time before that 6 car finally made it into victory lane. And of course, it just so happened to be when Zach was not in the booth. Scott Crump, though, will lead us to the green alongside Justin Wadsworth after that walk-off win. Mathieu Weeks starting third on that inside line with Johnny Thomas alongside him. 2 Championship 4 guys in the top 5, and you heard Mathieu Weeks before the race started in his brief little interview. He's going to go up here and try to take the lead. Aggression early from Mathieu Weeks is what we're expecting. For the final time in 2024, we are green flag racing at Richmond in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. And Scott Crump is away down into turn number 1.
Scott Crump clear out front with Justin Wadsworth in tow as they head down the back stretch. First side-by-side battle behind that. Third place, Mathieu Weeks on the inside. Johnny Thomas working the outside in car 83.
You wonder how much Mathieu Weeks' statement towards aggression was going to be gamesmanship to kind of hide his true strategy. That's not something we've seen early in these races from that 11 car in particular. He likes to save his tires, likes to plan for the long run and be there at the end. He kind of aggressively declared to some extent that he was going to go up here and take the lead from the 90 in the 6 car. We'll see if that is the case. Those Pro Edge Toyotas have been very, very we'll call it patient this season in terms of their aggression levels, and they wait till mid to late in this race to get going. As Michael Goodman sideways off of turn 2 into the inside wall. Will the caution flag wave? I don't see it just yet. Looks like Goody's going. And the yellow is out now. As we take a look at what happened to Michael Goodman, that might have been an incident with Gerald Campbell on turn 4, and saw Goody lose that 44 car and get it slideways and into the inside wall, but we are under caution for a separate incident, and here it is. Casey Hatch into Gerald Campbell right at the end of that incident. Gerald looks like he got that car a little bit loose out of turn 4, and just like Tyler Fody said in his brief pre-race interview, that car very loose on corner exit there, going out of the corners, and Gerald Campbell the second to kind of overstep that. He and Michael Goodman with incidents on lap 3 and 4 respectively.
And that was kind of our concern. We talked about it in the pre-race. You heard it from some of the drivers that are competing for this championship. It's just whatever it is with these flatter tracks, I should say. With the next gen on iRacing, it just the car does not like to stay planted on corner exit, and we've already seen a couple of those spins from cars getting upset to bring out our first caution of the evening.
Several cars on pit road, but they're all further back in the field. Ryan Schultz, Casey Hatch, Gerald Campbell, and more. Why don't we take this first caution to run an ad break, hopefully in advance of some long green flag runs, and we'll be back with you for the restart.
Since 2010, race fans have had one burning question. When will the Xfinity Series return to Worldwide Technology Raceway? You asked, NASCAR delivered. On Saturday, September 6, 2025, the magic is back. The track that launched the legendary careers of Harvick, Busch, Keselowski, Edwards, and Earnhardt Jr. is now ready to write that next chapter. We're going to introduce you to a new crop of future champions and Hall of Famers. And in the process, we'll create more of the greatest moments in racing history. NASCAR Weekend 2025, the NASCAR Cup Series Championship Playoffs, the Confluence Music Festival, and now 250 miles of the NASCAR Xfinity Series. 2 incredible races, 1 challenging track, a 3-day party of epic proportions. Go to www.raceway.com and lock in your weekend racing and camping packages for as little as $20 down.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel.
Welcome back to Richmond. Scott Crump, the race leader, lap 8 underway, and we are back under green, the restart of the Mountain Man 200 is green. Scott Crump and Justin Wadsworth lead him down into turn 1. Mathieu Weeks jumping to the inside of Wadsworth. He got a little bit better of a start, and Wadsworth cuts that move off at the entrance to turn 3 and will retain the lead in the championship for the time being.
And you want to talk about a good start. Scott Crump got a very good restart that time, able to get out front, and right now holding about 0.3 of a second over Justin Wadsworth. Oh, I believe that might be Seth Rawls that got out of shape further back.
I believe it was Seth Rawls in the 25 car. Definitely got out of shape. You mentioned a fast start too. I want to point out Ethan Stanley up to 11th already after that 18th starting spot. He has done great work in the several laps that we have been green. He's already about to crack into the top 10 just behind his teammate Tyler Fode.
Of course, those teammates will have a little bit of, as Darrell Waltrip likes to say, co-opetition tonight. You know, there is the big picture. You know, they'll work together as much as they can, but at some point, the gloves are going to have to come off as they race for that championship. It's not now, though. They're going to try to get into the better part of this top 10 and work their way forward here on lap 12.
Ethan Stanley opting to use that outside line. We haven't seen much of that here tonight. Tyler Fode wasn't even sure there would be an outside line. Ethan Stanley utilizing it to pass Jeff Green for the 10th position and notch all 4 of our championship 4 into that top 10. You can see him displayed in green on the pylon to the left of your screen. And just in front of Ethan Stanley, the battle is between Tyler Fode and Gavin Hibbs in the 95 car for that 8th position. And right now, give it to Tyler Fode. He's working his magic on the bottom of the racetrack.
You know, speaking about that higher line, it's worth noting this is going to be, I guess, not our first race, because I guess this would have been in place last week, but still one of our first races, and certainly our first short track race, with this latest update, latest build, and part of that build was, you know, some of the update to things like marbles. You don't have to worry about grass as much, or certainly not gravel here, but the marbles definitely saw a big update last week as part of that new season build, and I think at a track like this, that could really play a role as we get later into the race.
It really could. You know, I think that's a big time unknown for us in the booth, for the drivers on the track. Not a lot of experience with a well-worn track with old tires and marbles on the surface. I anticipate that there's a real possibility we could see someone encounter something they were not expecting tonight, especially once the tires get heated up and they maybe try that outside lane, or they slide the right front tire and go up the racetrack, and then, you know, that could potentially cause an issue later on. But for now, I mean, these guys have really quite kept it on the bottom of the track. We've only seen a couple of drivers migrating up to the top. Right now, the driver up top is a Leighton Norgard. He's alongside Trey Holmes. I don't think a Leighton wants to be up there. I think the fueled up racing Chevrolets kind of have him pinned up on the top of the track right now.
No, it definitely seems like the bottom lane is where everyone wants to be at the moment, with only a few exceptions, and that's it'll be interesting to see if that changes as we put more rubber down on that second lane. But I think for right now, it's a little bit more of an old school Richmond feel to this one, and not so much what we've seen in more recent years at the real life Richmond Raceway.
Seth Rawls now the car victimized by these fueled up Chevrolets on the bottom of the track. Rawls going backward, 3 wide in the mid pack. Andrew Rucker, Jordan Owens, and a Leighton Norgard going after it here. Rucker in what could be his final Elite Cup Series race. I'm going to not count that out for sure. Rucker's been around for a really long time, and I'm willing to bet he'll be back in some capacity next season, but he's definitely retiring from full-time competition, giving up his charter, and thereby his ability to lock into these races. See battles with Norgard, Owens, and Rosimus battling just behind. Right, all this behind Zach Rogers, making another start for I believe that's the Mountain Man Motorsports team in the one car. Rogers has been pretty good this year. Had a good run, I believe, at Darlington.
He did have a good run at Darlington, and now we see him in those Napa colors, as we've seen him a few times this season. Currently running in the 18th position.
Look here in the mid-pack as the field has strung out pretty well single file. A few battles here and there. Chris Wright and Josh Adams were getting after it a couple of laps ago, and obviously that Jordan Owens battle back there with the Leighton Norgard that we had been on, but thus far everyone has kept it calm. They've acknowledged, I think, after those first two incidents, that the possibility of losing your car on corner exit is very real, and I think that's going to keep these drivers from overstepping their bounds a little bit and potentially keep this thing green for quite a long time, as now we have a battle for the 5th position between Tate Lytle and Chad Frankenfield.
Lytle on the inside, Frankenfield on the outside. Frankenfield got a decent little run out turn 2 there, but Lytle's still able to at least keep enough of that nose to the inside of Chad that he has to respect it and leave him to lane. But that time, Chad's got to be able to clear Tate and move back into the inside lane here going into turn 1.
I'll tell you who's not going to roll over for you, and that's that 15 car, Chad Frankenfield. That is his bread and butter right there. The kind of run in the lane of the bottom car and just kind of force you to make a mistake. It's not the most popular way to race, but it is a very valid form of racing. We saw Ryan Newman do it for a number of years and make a career out of that in the Cup Series. And it's how Chad races. He doesn't want to lose any positions ever. Tate Lytle there behind him might get a little bit frustrated. We've seen a little extra aggression, I think, out of that 56 car in the last couple of weeks. But right now, I think he's got an angry right rear tire from getting loose underneath Chad Frankenfield. And That's resulting in Tyler Fode now having a run after Tate Lytle's teammate, Ethan Burrell.
And now, oh, big move there as Ethan Burrell ducks to the inside of Tate Lytle going into turn 3. And Tate might have been caught a little bit by surprise there, and that's going to open the door for Tyler Fode, and I'm sure Ethan Stanley will try to stick his foot in the door before it closes as well.
Tate Lytle's, I think, car is a little bit agitated from that slide there in turn 4, but you see Tate trying to close off the door on Tyler Fode, and Fode in a position where he can't force that issue and get involved in a wreck here, and I think Tate Lytle kind of knew that at that point, and he ultimately will get back in line there in the 7th spot, just behind his teammate Ethan Burrell in 6th. Fode and Stanley just behind, cautious early in the event, but there's a lot of time to get up there and challenge Justin Wadsworth and Mathieu Weeks for that championship 4 spot. Field, Chris Wright and Trey Holmes side by side for the 13th position on my monitor. Wright up on that top lane, and we've seen Chris Wright use that a lot this season. It has come somewhat as a detriment to the 9 cars. Seth Rawls loose in the background as well. Trey Holmes and Jonathan Cutlip are really moving forward right here, Zach.
And I feel like we have to mention, you do not adjust your monitor. You are not seeing double. Jonathan Cutlip with a red number 5 with white numbers, and giving us another car to try and get confused while calling this race. But it is Cutlip in the 5, Trey Holmes in the 88 that we've seen a few times now this season, that Budweiser scheme.
We saw it in the painted black version at Talladega when Cutlip and Holmes were in the same car, but as Chris Wright cuts over, tries to get to the outside of, or the inside of Trey Holmes, ultimately that's going to open up the door on the outside lane for Jonathan Cutlip to try and go around, and the 2 fueled up Chevrolets have kind of been running nose to tail, and they've been making some hay, I think, through this field a little bit. From Cutlip started 20th, Holmes started 17th. They are up to 13th and 14th respectively. That's a pretty sizable climb for both drivers, and Trey Holmes is one of the best at saving tires. I think that could be a sign of things to come as Trey is expected to move on from fueled up racing, and I keep trying to get him to tell me what team he's moving to. He won't do it. He won't spill the beans. So Trey Holmes on the move next season, but to a mystery team. Battle up here for 8th between championship 4 drivers, Tyler Fode and Ethan Stanley side by side for a moment. Stanley ultimately lets Tyler Fode back in line on the bottom of the track. They are, I think, bottled up a little bit behind the Ethan Burrell and Tate Lytle train right now. They just can't quite make a pass, and they aren't willing to go up to that outside lane and try and get around Tate Lytle that way. Certainly those Pro Edge Toyotas making things difficult for those Lake Norman Chevrolets, and that's something I think, that's a battle we've seen all season long.
I think a lot of guys are just having trouble passing at this particular stage in the run or in the races. Tyler Fode's got to try to prove me wrong here and stick the nose inside of Tate Lytle, but I just don't know when you get pinched off on the bottom there if you can generate the run. It's that catch-22 we see so often. But I was actually going to tie that in. I was saying Chad Frankenfield had been behind Johnny Thomas for several laps now, and now Frankenfield, and again, he's not able to make the move either. He showed the inside, got alongside Johnny, but ultimately could not make the pass, and that's kind of what we're seeing here in this pack behind them as well.
Chad working to the inside of Johnny Thomas for that 4th spot. Tyler Fode and Ethan Stanley side by side for the 8th spot. Neither car able to make a completed pass. Here's Johnny holding strong on the outside. So too is Ethan Stanley and Tate Lytle up on the top. Tyler Fode hanging out on the bottom of the track. But finally, Chad Frankenfield does clear through Johnny Thomas and moves up to 4th. Johnny falls back to 5th. All this behind Mathieu Weeks, behind Justin Wadsworth, and then ultimately behind race leader Scott Crump, who has led all 38 laps so far, but we haven't really talked about him very much, just due to the other storylines going on tonight and this big battle here between these championship 4 drivers. But Scott's had a great race already, and he was the guy everyone pointed to as kind of the favorite when it comes to Richmond. He's just really good at this racetrack.
Oh, he is phenomenal at Richmond. And I mean, in general, he's a pretty good flat track driver. Richmond, especially, just lots of success for Scott Crump. And there's a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a home track for him as well. So lots of reasons for Scott Crump to want to do well here, and he usually does, and we're seeing that again tonight.
Dave's done a great job of just leaving it on this battle between Tyler Fode and Tate Lytle while we do throw in our blurb about Scott Crump and being good at Richmond. That was something we were going to obligate it, we were going to have to get to as a kind of an obligatory fact as he's led the first 40 laps of this race. But the battle back there between Tyler Fode and Tate Lytle is still raging on. Crump's gotten to lap traffic. Gerald Campbell now a lap down in this group, and Ethan Burrell has caught Johnny Thomas after Chad Frankenfield dispatched of him. I do believe that will bottle things up a little bit because Johnny might have burned the tires off this 83 car.
Which, a little bit surprising to say that about Johnny Thomas, but indeed he has lost ground on Chad Frankenfield, and judging by kind of the attitude of that 37 car, it definitely looks like Ethan Burrell is getting held up and trying to find a way around that 83 of Johnny Thomas as we close in on 50.
Ooh, contact between Tyler Fode and Tate Lytle.
Well, the clock is ticking, I think. I mean, we haven't been racing long, but already I mentioned closing in on that 50 lap mark, closing in on the quarter distance of this 200 lap race, and at some point you got to start making some of these moves if you think you're faster than a guy, and that's kind of where we're at, I believe, with Tyler Fode and Tate Lytle.
Yeah, Ethan Stanley definitely giving Tyler Fode a lot of breaks right here, given the situation the two of them are in. Tate Lytle not giving those guys breaks, right? He knows that they're some of Mathieu Weeks' biggest competition. He's able to hold them behind, and if this race were to go green to the end, he's creating a fairly insurmountable gap back up to the front two of our championship four as Stanley got into Tate Lytle a little bit, unless that was Tyler Fode. That might have been. No, Lytle got back after Fode. He's still out of control. Looked like it was Tyler Fode. Not real thrilled with the 56 car right there. Trey Holmes and Jonathan Cutlip are now into the top 10 with that move. There it is. Tyler Fode into the back of Tate Lytle, right in front of Ethan Stanley, too. That a lesser driver probably loses that and collects Ethan Stanley, and he might collect Tyler Fode, too.
And then there you see the throttle application on corner exit as well. Tate Lytle falling back to the 10th position after that skirmish.
Battle again now as Ethan Stanley gets underneath Ethan Burrell. A couple of guys who I would have called our most dominant drivers this season. Burrell set the Cup Series record for laps led in a season. Stanley the record for wins. They're going to split Johnny Thomas 3 wide here down the front straightaway. 3 wide into turn 1. Ethan Stanley and Ethan Burrell go around Johnny Thomas. Both will clear the 83 car. A very fun move here at Richmond.
Yeah, that was a big move there for Ethan Stanley, and that's given him 2 cars between himself and Tyler Fode, and now he's going to try to chase down Chad Frankenfield, and then after that he's got to be back at least in touch with Justin Wadsworth and Mathieu Weeks as far as on the scoring pylon. He'll still have to make up that 2.5 gap.
Right. That's I think Tyler Fode kind of communicated what you were mentioning there when you noted, we're at that quarter distance mark in this race as Fode does get around Johnny Thomas for that 7th position. Urgency is starting to pick up a little bit, especially for these championship 4 drivers. You have to position yourself as we approach, what is probably going to be a singular pit stop in this race. You're going to have to nail that pit stop. You're going to have a really good car on this long run. I think Tyler Fode used up a lot of tire working to the inside of Tate Lytle right there, and Jonathan Cutlip's been very, very smooth. He has not burned that tire off much at all. I think Cutlip's probably going to drive on by Tyler Fode right here.
And, one thing to keep in mind, we're still, I think, a long ways I mean, we've still got 150 laps in this race, but already you can see, we talked about those marbles. You're starting to visibly see them on the apron here in turns 1 and 2, and even up against the fence in the corners. And that's going to be important to note for a couple of reasons. Right now, the bigger issue is, even if when these tires wear off and you start trying to work your way up the racetrack for some grip, you're only going to be able to go so high, I'm afraid.
Yeah, there's definitely a point at which that will not be beneficial, I think, to try and get the run. You see, Gerald Campbell is the car up top right there. Our announcer from the booth last week, he's in the field tonight. He had obviously had that issue early in the race, is already a lap down, is working to stay out of the way by running that top groove, but he's also experiencing those marbles for the first time. So too is Casey Hatch in the 14. Those guys, I don't believe they're battling for the lucky dog at this point. You know, Michael Goodman is a lap down ahead of them, but you know, they're running in the marbles and they're making it work. So it must not be quite as slippery as we were concerned about earlier in the night. That said, I wouldn't want to go up there for, you know, without the grip or, you know, with those super hot tires from a long run.
Right, yeah, I think that's the larger concern. It's one thing if you're just, I don't think it's ice up there by any means, but it definitely would impact your handling if you were actively fighting for a position. Those lap cars are certainly not doing that, so it's manageable, but I think we've seen it especially at Richmond where maybe it gets a little wider, longer in a run. I'm sure we'll still see that second group. I don't know if we're going to see anything too crazy tonight.
Yeah, they've run the wall in races past at Richmond, and I don't think that was going to happen. Dave, can we actually jump back on board with Tyler Fode real quick? Or potentially another driver, but Fode is in a battle here with Trey Holmes. Just take a look at the apron right there to see what we're kind of talking about when it comes to those marbles. Whenever we enter those corners here alongside Tyler Fode, you know, you'll see that it looks like the apron is almost covered in like black specks. That is tire rubber, kind of a simulated version of what happens in real life when tires grate against the racetrack and marble up into little balls and clumps of rubber. And you know, if you ever go to like your local short track or something, or you can kind of see this effect and end up with a piece of tire rubber, you know, as a souvenir in the night if you're able to get on the track and walk around. It's pretty cool that's kind of what happens to these racing tires, and that iRacing's been able to model that effectively to this extent. And you know, it's new to us. We don't know exactly how that's going to affect this championship race, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, I don't think it will play a role in this race just because of the amount of time on a short track we would have to go on a green flag run for this to happen. You and I can speak to this from the Truck Series event on Sunday. If you get a green flag pit stop, trying to slow down the race car on these marbles on iRacing that have been added in this latest build on the apron is a handful. And Richmond is already one of the tougher pit entries on the schedule on a good day. Mm-hmm. So that could have championship implications if we do have a green flag pit cycle.
And these guys would not have had a ton of practice with the marbles being so high from a long green flag run like we're getting right now, as that battle continues for the 7th position. Looks like Chris Wright may be the first car to head to pit road here under this future green flag cycle, but you know, he got onto pit road okay. I don't know that I see any black flag for the 9 car. I do not. So Chris made it on the pit road okay, but you're absolutely right. Richmond, very treacherous pit road. Got those barrels sitting right in your path, and you know, guys are going to have to slow up on the racing surface to avoid the marbles. And even then, right, if you do that, you might get run over by a car who's already on fresh tires. There's a lot of potential pitfalls that these championship drivers are going to have to overcome when it comes to, you know, making this green flag pit stop, which I don't believe is going to occur for another 40 laps or so. But I think once you hit lap 100, that window kind of opens. Wright's going to be 2 laps down when all is said and done, but he's right behind race leader Scott Crump.
So nearly 3 laps down for the driver of the...
No, just 2. He's like right behind Crump at 2 down.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Here's a battle for the 9th position. It's 9th all the way back to 12th. Johnny Thomas and Tate Lytle side by side. Corey Abbott and Ethan Burrell side by side for the 11th spot. Move Corey Abbott up, man. The 21 car really working his way forward, having a good time on this long run. We talked about Corey a lot this year, but I don't think he's really put together the finishes that the speed has kind of wrought for this 21 car. It's been a good car this season, but just has not, I think, acquired the points to show for it. Here comes Johnny Thomas down pit road.
Yeah, Johnny Thomas making the move just as Corey Abbott was passing him to move into the top 10. There is Johnny Thomas on pit road in that number 83.
Johnny made pit road look super easy. Completely invalidating everything we discussed just now, but don't be fooled, right? Johnny's experienced. He's a really skilled driver, and that's still not an easy move to do. Also on pit road is Jesse Racimus. He's coming off just now. Seth Rawls also on pit road. A bunch of guys working on a 2-stop strategy, I think, to get to the end of the Mountain Man 200 tonight.
And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit surprised to see this. Maybe tire wear is a little more dramatic than I expected, which, to be fair, has been an issue at some of these flatter tracks. We have seen that before, so possibly not out of the question. But I don't know that I expected this many drivers to go that direction with the 2-stop strategy, but we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, a lot of guys, I think, throwing kind of caution to the wind a little bit as Corey Abbott moves up to 9th. And just trying for different strategies and different things to get them off cycle. And, they might have also noticed how hard it is to pass and said, all right, well, let's try and do something different. As here comes Michael Goodman down pit road, and you get a shot of what it's like to pull in towards those barrels around the corner on the flat of the apron through the marbles. Like we said, it's not super easy, but Goody also made it look easy. No penalties so far, no crashes into the water barrels. The drivers are doing a great job.
That's the toughest part, right? Is that apron is only one lane, so you have to make the decision. Do you utilize that? Do you stay on the racing surface and then drop down later? And then the later you drop, the harder it is to miss that. Oh, that's Tate Lytle who has opted to pit.
Tate Lytle has opted to come down pit road. I want to note that I was looking at the lap times, right? Justin Wadsworth, Mathieu Weeks are running about the same lap times right now. They've maintained about a 1.5 distance between each other for the majority of this run, and Weeks is just now under fire and being passed by Jonathan Cutlip on track, but they're about 1.5 to 2 seconds off of their qualifying times. Wadsworth just ran at 24.6. He qualified at a 22.8. So this is a pretty big gap in that tire wear, 1 to 2 seconds. That's going to put a lot of gains on the guys that are pitting right now. Tate Lytle, Gavin Hibbs, Chris Wright, and the others, Seth Rawls and those guys that came down pit road. They're going to have a lot of gains, but if this race goes green, 2-lap 200, these guys are going to fall back drastically because they're going to be out there on very old tires, and they're going to have to pit an extra time. I think the 1-stop strategy has probably got to be the call. It's just a better call at this point because there's only 200 laps in this race, and you can go 100 laps on a tank of fuel usually. I would not want to be where that 37 car is, though. I'll tell you that. He has fallen back. Ethan's had some struggles tonight.
For sure.
That car is not handling up to typical 37 car snuff.
Definitely a handful for Ethan Burrell at the moment. You see him trying to hold on to that outside lane against Zach Rogers right now as they battle for the 11th position. And
you're about to get tires.
Yeah, here's your difference right here. You're going to see Johnny Thomas and Chris Wright come blowing by here in the next corner, maybe. Certainly the next lap or two.
It's perfect. Yeah. Look at how quickly Chris Wright is to the back bumper as Zach Rogers now has to. Chris Wright can't dawdle here. He's got to go. Chris Wright and Johnny Thomas are on this 2-stop strategy. They have to make it work. They have to get as much advantage out of these tires as possible while the life is good on them. And they make 3 quick passes there in succession, and that's all it takes. There they go, 83 and 9. But remember, those guys are a lap behind the 1, the 37, the 22. So, and this group still hasn't pitted yet. Up front, battle is about to be for second spot. Justin Wadsworth, 6 seconds off of race leader Scott Crump. He is now under fire from Jonathan Cutlip in the 5-car. Cutlip has driven from 20th to 3rd in this green flag run. He's going to be hunting down second as well in this run. Still running 24.4s. Wadsworth is up in the 24.5 bracket. The 5 of Jonathan Cutlip really showing some long run muscle here tonight.
It really is. It looks like he's got to try and get around Justin Wadsworth for that second spot. And you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons here if you are Justin Wadsworth. Obviously, track position, super important, especially with a championship on the line, but also championship on the line. Do you want to use a lot of lap time, exert a lot of tire wear, exert a lot of energy towards holding off this 5-car when he's not one of your championship contenders?
I think you answered your question right there. I think if I'm Wadsworth, I'm driving my line. I'm not paying attention to Jonathan Cutlip right here. If Cutlip is faster and he gets by, so be it. That's what it has to be, because Wadsworth's main competition is that 11-car. He's kept him at bay, at arm's length effectively for this whole first run. 1.5 to 2 seconds, pretty much the entire run. That's an ideal first run for the 6-car, and he set the tone in qualifying. He's been able to maintain it the whole way through. Thus far, through 82 laps, this could not have gone more perfectly for Justin Wadsworth in particular.
There we see Casey Hatch going on the pit road there.
I think a bigger flock of drivers starting to head down pit road in the next 10 laps or so. I'm guessing you can go past lap 90. You can go like 110 laps on fuel specifically, but some of these guys aren't going to want to stay out there on the tires they do have, as Abbott going around Tyler Fode. Fode's car, just the tire saving on that 40 car just isn't as good after that battle with Tate Lytle.
No, both of those drivers definitely used up a lot of their tires in that fight. Speaking of fights, we go back to that battle for second. Justin Wadsworth still able to keep a couple of car lengths out in front of Jonathan Cutlip, working lap 85 here in the Mountain Man 200.
Scott Crump is in turn 3. If you're wondering how far ahead 6.5 seconds is, he's battling Brent Jones at the start-finish line now. Wadsworth just now exiting turn 4, so these guys aren't even on the same straightaway as race leader Scott Crump right now. We've got a smoker there in turn 2. Seth Rawls' car got a little bit sideways, ultimately able to save it, prevent the caution, and we continue on.
Further forward, there you see, well, that is Dustin Dewar.
Dewar, Clark, the back end of the lead lap. All this, you'll note Scott Crump is in a massive hornet's nest right now. We're just behind it in this camera shot. And look at all these cars Scott Crump is going to have to deal with here in the next couple of laps. Justin Wadsworth's already picked half a second out of his lead. I think this lead's about to come down drastically, because Crump is just got nowhere to go right now. Even though he's got fresher tires than all of these cars effectively, the way he's been able to roll the corner has been spectacular. But when you're in traffic like this, it makes things very nervous for a guy who's led every one of these first 89 laps.
Yeah, you're really hoping, because The trouble spot for these drivers is they are running their own race. They can't just roll over him and let Scott go. They'd love to. They don't want to get in the way of his battle for the win, but they're in the middle of their own races as well. And these guys, as you can see, are all tucked up together, racing for position. They've probably been trying to set up passes for 10, 15, 20 laps now, and here comes the leader. It's a tough spot for those guys to be in, and Scott Crump just has to be real patient here and work his way through this traffic.
Yeah, he's doing a great job right now. That's patience is something we haven't really seen be Scott Crump's specialty, I think, this season, and it's kind of resulted in a season that he isn't here racing for a championship, right? He has not really won a race this season. It's been a bit of bad luck, but a bit of self-inflicted stuff by Scott Crump. And what he's looking for tonight is to kind of right all the wrongs and get on a good foot, I think, for 2025. He puts Ty McIntosh a lap down. The next car up is Ethan Burrell.
I was about to say, look who he's lapping here.
I mean, these are fast cars. Ty, Ethan, Vandermarl, Owens. Owens was in the playoffs. Man, what a run for Scott Crump here in this opening stint. Worth noting, Jonathan Cutlip has taken second over from Justin Wadsworth while we watch Scott Crump battle this out. And, I think that's fine for Justin Wadsworth's part. I think you just have to allow Jonathan Cutlip to have that spot right now. That's not the spot you're worried about. The one you are worried about, as Dave pulls it up, is Mathieu Weeks. And at the line, Wadsworth's still just a little bit faster than Weeks.
Yeah, even as Jonathan Cutlip was trying to set up that pass, the duo of Cutlip and Wadsworth added about a second, if not more, to their advantage over fourth place Mathieu Weeks. So that's all fine and dandy as far as Justin Wadsworth is concerned for this title picture.
Wadsworth is definitely going to be okay with that result.
And in the big picture, looking at the strategy of this race, you talk about, pitting early, getting the undercut, trying to get the fast lap times. The benefit for Justin Wadsworth to being out front here is he can cover whoever he feels he needs to cover. If Mathieu Weeks were to pit right here on lap 96, Justin Wadsworth would have the option to say, nah, I don't think so. I'm pitting now, and take away the advantage as we see, Andrew Rucker well off the pace here.
That sideways there in turn one ultimately saved it. And yeah, Cutlip, Wadsworth, they're not putting up a fight against Tate Lytle and his fresh tires. Chris Wright's right there as well. In fact, Wright's headed back down pit road again. Is he out of the race? Was that why? That might have been why Andrew Rucker was sideways. See if we can rewind to find what happened. I'll keep an eye on the field on track right now. Our championship four still sit 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 9th as they were before.
No, that's not related.
Chris just disconnected from the server, it appears. Connection dropped for Chris Wright, so disappointing end to the night for the 9 car, and a disappointing end to the 2024 B season. But I think he'll be back next year and fighting for wins. Looking through the field, trying to identify a few guys that are poised to make a really good run. Trey Holmes and Corey Abbott there in 7th and 8th are in a super good spot. They've really saved their tires well, and have managed.
Ethan Burrell somehow has not wrecked in turn 2.
That car is evil. I don't think I've ever seen Ethan Burrell this just off the pace. Oh, there's a reason for that car being out of shape.
Well.
There was a reason. He had some help, and it was pretty clear Andrew Rucker not intending to run into Ethan Burrell there. We noted with Tyler Fode in the booth earlier tonight that the right front tire loves to lock up on corner entry, and right here, right front tire locked up on Andrew Rucker.
Yeah, that was quite the moment there. You could see the lockup. I think Andrew was also a little bit surprised by how much faster that he was than Ethan on corner entry a little bit as well, which only tends to increase the likelihood of those lockups.
I'm sure Justin Wadsworth doesn't want to be the next victim on that as he moves out of the way. Battle for sixth occurring right now. Trey Holmes and Ethan Stanley working after one another. These two made some contact in turn one. Trey Holmes, I think, a little bit faster than Stanley right now, but has kind of given him the benefit of the doubt. But with that loose condition off turn four, that's going to open up the door for Corey Abbott on the outside. This battle for sixth is 3 cars deep, and 2 of those cars are not playoff contenders. They're not drivers who made the playoffs, but they're stuck in behind Ethan Burrell. Chad Frankenfield on pit road to get tires and fuel. He can make it to the end from here. Stanley clears by Burrell. Holmes and Abbott are now trapped in behind Burrell, and that might end that battle that was brewing for Ethan Stanley and relieve some of the pressure around him.
I mean, yeah, you can see, I mean, with obviously these lead cars haven't pitted yet, but 9 cars on the lead lap right now as we work our way through this green flag cycle.
That's a testament to Scott Crump and everything that he's done tonight. I mean, built up a 7-second lead in half the race. Very impressive, especially at a short track. As here comes Ethan Burrell down pit road. That's probably, what do you think, 10 laps later than he needed to. I am shocked that Ethan Burrell's having a race this bad. It's one of those where I've had my share of bad races, but that's a guy I think very highly of, and it's very shocking to see him have a race that it's more pedestrian.
Definitely surprising to see that from Ethan Burrell, and he'll probably be very happy to get those fresh Goodyears on that number 37 for these final 94 laps or so.
Unlapping himself right now, Dave switched to it right as I started to mention it. Tate Lytle has now rejoined the lead lap cars. This run has gone on long enough that we have seen Tate Lytle overcome being the 2 laps down. So he's overcome basically a whole lap in that run. But once Scott Crump hits pit road, he'll be about a lap behind Tate Lytle, but we saw just how quick Tate was able to run down Scott Crump. That's how quick Crump will run down Tate Lytle once pit stops begin. And they are beginning for our championship 4. Ethan Stanley, I believe this is Ethan Stanley, is on pit road right now, grabbing 4 fresh tires. And that means that I think Tyler Fody, Mathieu Weeks, and Justin Wadsworth will have to consider when to answer. Wadsworth's in the outside here in turn 3. He's not going to be able to make pit road this time. Weeks also bypassing pit road. They might, I don't think the undercut is going to really help, but that could be something that gets Ethan Stanley back in this championship fight.
And he, most of all, out of the 4, had to do something, right? He had to make a move to see if either the contenders respond or to make up some of that ground with the undercut, and we will see how it works out for him.
Tyler Fody is almost a lap down to race leader Scott Crump under green. Scott Crump, man, this has been a clinic that he has put on over 111 laps. He's led every one of them so far, and he is extremely quick, to the point that Fody is struggling mightily, and that's not something I say with regularity. And yeah, Tyler Fody, I think, is going to head down pit road right here.
There you see Tyler Fody on pit road. As far as the Scott Crump situation, this is the kind of thrashing we usually see on the road courses, right? From we used to see it from R.C. Enerson a lot. Now it's more of a, I guess, the Ethan Stanley calling card, but we don't usually see something like this on the ovals.
Here comes Scott Crump down pit road. He waited a long time to get to the apron, but he got there. I believe that was a pretty perfect pit road entrance. And if there's a guy who's had a lot of experience with pitting at Richmond, it's definitely Scott Crump, and he will yield the lead for the first time tonight. Jonathan Cutlip takes it over. So Crump leads the first 112 laps here at Richmond, but he hasn't led the last one yet this year. We have seen stretches of dominance from this 90 car result in a mistake or, issue in traffic or something to that effect. But I think if Scott just keeps things clean tonight, I don't know that Cutlip might be the only guy who can come after him. As Cutlip now onto pit road, Justin Wadsworth stays out, Mathieu Weeks stays out, the two of them working to extend their tire advantage later in the race. I'm curious, Zach, do you agree with Wadsworth and Weeks here not pitting with their rivals?
No, and neither does Justin Wadsworth.
Wadsworth's ready to come down, so does Weeks. Weeks had a big pit road entry right there. Definitely made up some time on Justin Wadsworth there on pit road entry. Did Mathieu Weeks.
Definitely the experience you talked about with Scott Crump paying off for Mathieu Weeks there on that pit road entry. Made up a lot of ground, and we'll see exactly how much if it translates through these pit stops.
And slide through your box here. Both guys made it in on perfectly, and you can see, Weeks just through the pit road sequence has made up a ton of ground. He was 3 seconds behind Wadsworth before that pit stop. He's going to be right on his bumper, I think, as they exit pit road.
Even the pit stop itself, by the time the jack dropped on the right side, they were almost even, and Mathieu Weeks has got to follow, like you said, right in Justin Wadsworth's tire tracks as they exit pit road.
Tyler Fode is on the back straightaway right here, so trying to get a sense of where everyone is in relation to each other. Ethan Stanley is way up the road from Tyler Fode and this group. Stanley is in turn 3, Wadsworth back in turn 2, but again, Stanley has about 5 to 8 lap older tires than those guys behind him, and you see he got enough steam from those fresh tires to get in front of Jonathan Cutlip, who had pitted a little bit later, but from way in front of Ethan Stanley, and he's just now falling behind Stanley as they both unlap themselves from race leader Corey Abbott, who is finally going to head down pit road.
And it looks like that will turn over the advantage to Tate Lytle. Whoa, a little bit out of shape behind him. I believe that was
Brett Jones.
Okay.
Was. You can see just how Lytle, Lytle's going to have to pit as well, but he unlapped himself in this sequence, and I think got himself into a really good spot where he can maybe take advantage of, running the two-stop strategy and making it not be a net negative, I think, overall, because Lytle was back in 10th before all this started. He's going to get a few laps led. He's going to pit here, I would say, in the next 5 laps or so, probably, and then have fresh tires and be on the attack to the end of the race. He might stay out longer than that. I don't know if I would agree with that strategy, but that is Tate Lytle's prerogative as a 3-time champion in this series.
I do wonder, obviously I don't know about fuel numbers per se. Would they have the option to one-stop it altogether from as early as where they pitted?
For Tate, yes, but he's going to lose the lead in.
Oh yeah, for sure. It would not
Tate's going to lose the lead in 20 laps or so.
He's got to lose the lead way before that. But I just meant in terms of, is it a strategy on the table if you were trying to improve on a 15th place run or whatever? I still think you'd be better off taking that second stop with how early they pitted. But I'm just mathematically speaking, and I know what my rule is.
Yes, no math.
No math, but
Justin Wadsworth and Mathieu Weeks navigating a hornet's nest right here. I do not know the answer to that question for you, Zach. I feel like I've always held Richmond as like around 100 laps of fuel, maybe 110 in my brain. I could be wrong as to how much they truly have, and if it is 100 to 110 total laps, which is about the run that the leaders pitted on right there.
Yeah.
That would put Lytle at 20 laps short on fuel.
Sure.
Sorry, I was doing math. I know, no math. But
Again, I was told there would be no math.
So with the undercut, and you can see it, well, you kind of see it here on your screen, but Ethan Stanley is lap 17, bypassing Gavin Hibbs at the moment as Hibbs comes down pit road to try and capitalize on the two-stop strategy. Stanley is about 5 seconds ahead of Justin Wadsworth and Mathieu Weeks. Weeks made up that time. He's kept Wadsworth in his sights about a half a second behind the 6 car. But those guys are now 5 seconds behind Ethan Stanley. Stanley has made that undercut work. He's gotten the top position in this championship battle. Can he hold on to it through this green flag run? Wadsworth's going to be gaining on it, and I think that's going to make things difficult for Stanley, but we've seen Stanley perform greater acts of heroism than just hold guys off with slightly older tires. I think he's certainly got enough speed to be able to save the tires over this run, and by the time Wadsworth and Weeks get there, be kind of on equal footing.
The other thing to keep in mind too is there's no guarantee this race goes green, and a caution could not be more timely for Ethan Stanley because it gives him all that track position he lost qualifying in the 18th position, gets him in front of these championship contenders, and then obviously if you do get caution, everybody would be pitting for tires at that point. Put him on level footing with them for a head-to-head fight out of that caution. So certainly I think that's another factor into his decision to pit when he did, is, you know, you're one time with caution away from being properly back in the fight and not just needing the strategy to work out.
Yeah, I do think Stanley is in a spot where a caution would be beneficial, but I do want to point out that Mathieu Weeks has started to hunt after Justin Wadsworth. They got side by side while we were on board with Scott Crump as he hunts down Tate Lytle. Weeks is definitely in a position where he's stalking after Wadsworth. Wadsworth's still working on the tire saving. I don't know that he's capitalized on the fresh tires of this 6 car, and Weeks has been a little bit quicker just about every lap, and at this point in the run, they're not really catching Ethan Stanley. The advantage is still 5 seconds for Ethan Stanley, and they have fresher tires than he does. So even if Stanley gets that yellow flag, right now he doesn't seem to need it, at least not yet. The tires haven't fallen off yet for that 91 car.
I'll take a look at some lap times here. So Ethan Stanley is coming across the line now with a 23.669, and then you just saw Justin Wadsworth 23.537. So a little bit quicker, about a 10th.
But at the 10th, 5 seconds, that's a long time, right? To get there. And that's with Wadsworth being hounded right now by Mathieu Weeks. That's not helping his case at all, and I think they need to be making more gains. Now, they have inroaded a little bit into Stanley as he bypassed Jesse Racines, but I don't know. I feel like this is kind of Ethan Stanley's race to lose. The undercut proves very powerful, and you have to time it out properly, because if you undercut too much, you'll end up falling back. I think that's what we're going to see with Chad Frankenfield, who undercut fairly drastically. He was the first car on pit road. But if you can manage your stuff and have a 5 to 7 lap advantage, we saw a 10 lap advantage last week with Wadsworth work out to where he won the race.
And as you mentioned, Ethan Stanley, very good at that aspect of it, the tire management game. We've seen him time and time again do some really incredible stuff as far as making tires work over a long distance, whether it be here in the Cup Series or other series here in Elite. And I'm sure that's going through his mind right now as well, because again, yes, he's running 5th. Yes, there are 4 cars ahead of him. He's not worried about that. He's not worried about Tate Lytle, Scott Crump, although it does look like we might have a battle for the lead here soon. Ethan Stanley only has to worry about that 6 and 11 right now.
And those guys have continued to nearly be side by side. As here comes Scott Crump to the inside of Tate Lytle, and he will take over that race lead once again. But back to Ethan Stanley, right? That was his biggest disadvantage. Is Weeks making another move after Wadsworth in turn 1. I want to jump on this as Tate loses the lead and jumps on pit road. If we can, yeah, let's throw the battle on here, because these two are fighting with each other, and they're also trying to catch Ethan Stanley. Now, I want to harken back a little bit to last season. Ethan Stanley did not make the Final Four last year's season, the 2024 A season. He won some races, but we saw that car struggle to finish long runs. Stanley very much struggled with, once the tires burned off on the 91 car, with, being quick and, to the point where he had to pit early, and he often ran into the wall and got himself in trouble. I think it's very clear that the adjustments that he has made have resulted in this stretch of success this season, but it's also how he could potentially win the championship this year if things continue to go as they are, right? As Wadsworth and Weeks continuing to battle. They're about 4 seconds behind Ethan Stanley, so they made up a second since we've been talking about this, but that tire management that Stanley did not have last year, that could be the reason that he wins the championship at this point.
100%, and I think you are probably seeing a little bit of that from Ethan right now. He knows he has that buffer against Wadsworth and Weeks. Meanwhile, Wadsworth, we kind of saw him having to work that second lane. I'm sure that's not the faster lane. That's not probably helping him gain on Ethan Stanley, but it's what he's having to do to keep Mathieu Weeks behind him and keep Mathieu Weeks on the bottom, pinched down, so that he can't make that pass for the position. And look at what has stacked up behind them as a result. Now, granted, Tate Lytle's got to make pretty quick work here with those fresh tires on the two-stop strategy, but still a train of cars also mixed in here.
This is not what Wadsworth wants to see, I don't believe. And I don't think this is what Weeks wants to see either. And at this point, how much more patience does Mathieu Weeks utilize? They are not making ground on Ethan Stanley at this point. They're running the top. They're burning their tires off in a different way than either of them did in the first run when they had the advantage. And so what do you do? If you're Mathieu Weeks, you're getting hounded by these cars with tires. It's not Seth Rawls or Gavin Hibbs' fault per se. These guys have 20 or 30 lap fresher tires than either of the guys in front of them here, but they're trying to give some respect and hold back a little bit. But at some point, that the car in your mirror is causing you to miss your marks. The car in front of you causing you to get tight due to the dirty air on this next gen car. None of this is an ideal scenario for Mathieu Weeks and Justin Wadsworth right now, and it's causing Ethan Stanley to, I think, have an even more ideal opportunity to go out here and win this championship.
Oh, 100%. And really, I sympathize for all four of these cars on the screen, because like you say, for Gavin Hibbs and Seth Rawls, they do not want to get involved in this championship picture, but clearly with their strategy and their tires, it's everything they can do to stay out of the way, especially with those two cars in front of them running separate lines. I'm sure they'd love to just squeeze on by and get out of the way, but how do you do that without impacting this battle between Final Four contenders?
Right, it's just not a great spot, and Hibbs and Rawls showing, I think, a good bit amount of restraint. And Tate was able to go through so quickly that it didn't affect either Weeks or Wadsworth right there, I don't believe. But if Hibbs were able to, I think, get alongside Weeks, it would really slow up that 11 car to the point that Wadsworth might actually get some breathing room. And obviously Mathieu Weeks' strategy here is to hound this 6 car completely, force him into a mistake. And right now Wadsworth's been pretty solid, but Weeks, I think, I wonder how long the patience will continue for this 11, especially as they run up on some slower traffic here. That 6 car is going to have to continue to be perfect. They are making some ground on Stanley. The gap is about 3.5 seconds. They're still about a tenth quicker, even with the running of the outside lane. I'm hesitant to say that it's going to be the race winning call, but what they need right now is, I think, think both Wadsworth and Weeks need a little bit of clean track right now, and neither of them are getting it.
Identical lap times there you see on the screen that time for Stanley and Wadsworth.
Yeah, Wadsworth was also going around Andrew Rucker. And man, Mathieu Weeks has just been following right in Wadsworth's tire tracks, absolutely not allowing this 6 car to go anywhere. And all of that fighting has kind of resulted in them plateauing out against the 91 of Ethan Stanley, who's well up the road. Worth noting, Tyler Fody is not out of this fight yet, but I do believe Fody is going to need a caution. He's 6 seconds back in 8th place from this battle. As I pulled us away right as Weeks jumped to the inside and got sideways underneath Wadsworth. That does create a gap now for Justin Wadsworth, and that's probably what he was really looking for. Weeks made a little bit of a mistake on corner entry. He got a little bit aggressive. We talked about the patience. Tried to make it happen, ultimately ends up just making a little bit of contact with the 6 car, and it hurts Weeks more than it hurts Wadsworth. And now there is a gap. Weeks unable to capitalize, and maybe Justin Wadsworth can put together some lap times and go get his teammate. Maybe he can let Gavin Hibbs by.
Yeah, I think you got to at least consider it at this point if you are Justin Wadsworth. I understand it's not a huge difference there, but maybe let this car go. But the problem is that guy, do you need the clean air?
Right. I think it's not an enviable spot for Justin Wadsworth, but he has picked up 3/10 in the last 2 laps on teammate Ethan Stanley, and that's the gap he needs to mind. Here comes Gavin Hibbs behind Wadsworth. I do think Wadsworth lets the 95 and the 25 go here, but it's tough. It's a tough spot to be in.
It's so tough. That's why they're racing for the championship, and we're just talking about it, right?
That's true. Yeah, lapped cars, managing the lapped cars, managing your lane, your tires, your battle with the cars behind you, right? He's got to yield these positions without losing that advantage to Mathieu Weeks. That's not an easy task, and he's got to continue to try and make inroads on the 3-second gap he has up to his teammate Ethan Stanley. If Stanley could see this, he'd be thrilled. You would probably see clapping if he were not both hands on the wheel, focused at the moment. But I mean, this is going to perfection for the 91 car.
I hate to do this with so much on the line, but as we've gotten inside of 50 laps to go here, we haven't done our ad reads tonight, so it might be a chance here for Dave to churn those out before we get to the stretch run.
Belly Up Sports is the sponsor for the Cup Series, the Internet Sports Bar, sports commentary via podcasts, forums, and articles on topics ranging to nearly every sport, not your usual sports site. Check them out on X or at bellyupsports.com. Premier sponsors, 4D Racewear, makers of the ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel designed for sim racing by sim racers. 4D sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can and still provide all the comfort needed for those double and triple stints. So visit 4dracewear.com and check out the original racing gloves for your feet. Blue Egg Marketing, Blue Egg, rev up your big business with Blue Egg, your marketing pit crew. Turbocharge your lead generation with experienced drivers that can navigate the competitive track you're competing with your customers. With Blue Egg, you're always in a pole position, leading your brand toward victory lane. Don't spin your wheels, accelerate success with Blue Egg, fueling businesses to win big. And our race sponsor tonight is Mountain Man Motorsports. And he didn't give me a read, and I made some funny ones on Monday, so I think we're covered on that. Thanks, Robert.
Yep, thanks to Robert Hill, head honcho over at Mountain Man Motorsports. And while you were away, the battle between Wadsworth and Weeks is heated back up, and they are still 2.5 seconds behind Ethan Stanley. They're really not making much ground up on the 91 car at the moment. It's a tough spot. Oh, Weeks might have gotten the wall a little bit there off turn 2. They have started to make ground up in the last couple of laps as Stanley's encountered some lap traffic, but now Wadsworth and Weeks are running into lap traffic as well. I don't envy these guys, because Wadsworth and Weeks are going to have to find something and sort out which of them is going to be second in the championship, arriving up to Ethan Stanley in the next couple of laps. And right now, Weeks really wants it to be him.
And you mentioned some of that lap traffic. The next car for Ethan Stanley is not lap traffic. It is third place Chad Frankenfield. And we know how eager is for Chad to let anyone go on the racetrack.
I don't know if there's much Chad can do here. His tires are, 10 laps older than Ethan Stanley's?
That has never stopped him from trying.
5 laps older than Ethan Stanley's. Yeah, Chad's definitely going to hold it back, and I do want to shout Chad out while he's running in that podium spot. We haven't really talked about him given the way this race has gone and played out with regards to the championship floor, but Chad Frankenfield's had some really good pace tonight. He's been up here in the top 5 all night long, and for a guy who rather simply has had a bit of a struggle this season, a really good run here at Richmond tonight. As he's probably going to lose third to that 91 car, he's still in a really good spot. He may yet fall out of the top 5 in this one. Wadsworth and Weeks are, coming up pretty fast, but good night, good way to finish out the season, and I'm sure Chad is looking forward to having that momentum going into next season. Jump back to our favorite battle, the one that we've spent the most time on tonight for sure. That's Wadsworth and Weeks battling it out for what is currently second in the championship. They are currently lapping about a 10th faster than Ethan Stanley. It is really close, and Stanley is currently trapped behind Chad Frankenfield, and that might change things a little bit for Weeks and Wadsworth.
And Chad made a pretty aggressive move to the inside there to block Ethan Stanley, which, with the passing we've seen on the outside, I don't know if that's... And now he's... All right. Ethan Stanley's not going to be real pleased with that, I don't believe. No, and I get Chad's got to say he was trying to let Gavin by or whatever the case may be, but that was a couple of pretty big lane changes there from the guy running third in front of a championship contender.
I get Chad wants to hold on to a podium slot, but there are 29 laps left. And Stanley's tires are better. That cost Stanley quite a bit of time to his 2 championship rivals. Ultimately, Stanley's a very patient guy, real difficult to anger. But yeah, that wouldn't make me very happy. And yeah, look at that, 0.4 of a second to Mathieu Weeks and Justin Wadsworth. And you see Wadsworth's name on the screen, but it's pretty clear that Weeks has been on the rear bumper of that 6 car for the entirety of the run. So you can basically chalk up whatever slot Wadsworth is in to also where Weeks is, as Chad just got loose coming off of turn 2 and ran into Stanley.
Yep, contact there down the backstretch, and Stanley's really got to be fed up here.
See what Stanley does here entering turn 1. This is a really good spot to outbrake the car on the outside and maybe send them up the track if you're not feeling generous. Chad's still pinching down that 91, trying to battle it out for this 3rd spot, but that's ultimately kind of opening the door for this championship race to continue on Johnny Thomas, fresh tires. He'll jump to the inside, go 3 wide with the third and fourth place cars. Stanley in the middle, he won't back out of it. It's Chad's, I think, going to have the biggest struggle up there in the marbles. Ethan Stanley through to third finally, but he has given up a lot of time to Justin Wadsworth and Mathieu Weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you can see visibly the difference there. I mean, just behind, I mean, there's only about 3 cars between Ethan Stanley and Justin Wadsworth now.
And if I'm Ethan Stanley and Justin Wadsworth, they are teammates, they're in a chat together. If I'm Stanley, I'm reminding Justin Wadsworth, hey, there's a car in front of you that is not going to let you pass. You better do it quickly. And make a move on him very quickly and kind of force him out of the way. Because if you try to battle with him, it's just going to cost you time, and it might open up the door for Mathieu Weeks to jump into this championship fight. Clark into the wall off turn 4 right in front of Wadsworth. He drops to the inside. That might open the door for the 6 to get around the 28.
Didn't yet.
Well, I think Clark has a little bit fresher tires, which is going to keep him in this fight. He's on that 2-stop strategy after all. Is Josh Clark in his final race as a chartered Cup Series member? There are all our 4 championship Ford drivers right there on the screen. Ethan Stanley, the 91 light blue and silver car. Justin Wadsworth, the black and blue, number 6, and then Mathieu Weeks, the black and red, number 11. Chad Frankenfield running 4th in between them on the racetrack. Josh Clark is a lap down in the green and white car. And this is what it's all about right here. 22 laps, Wadsworth, Stanley, Weeks going after this championship fight.
And you have to feel a little bit for Scott Crump. Absolute clinic tonight, still leading and just not getting a lot of the conversation on the broadcast tonight, of course, because of this championship fight. Is 20 laps to go, Scott Crump still leading the way, but definitely all eyes on this championship battle.
Yep, battle for 4th right now. Wadsworth to the outside of Chad Frankenfield coming off turn 4. Josh Clark just in front of him, and then it is his championship rival and teammate Ethan Stanley. So the battle will be on as Wadsworth got the preferred lane against Chad Frankenfield, and look at that, Chad rolls over a little bit more for Justin Wadsworth. He was not so pleased to roll over for Ethan Stanley. I don't know if there's much more fight that 15 car could put up, but I mean, Wadsworth is just kind of following the 28 of Josh Clark with those fresh tires through these drivers, and the next car up for Justin Wadsworth is his championship rival, Ethan Stanley.
And now at this point, you can see metaphorically the championship through your windshield, and it's no longer about lap times. It's no longer about finding lines. You can see the car you have to pass. How do you go do it? You've got 19 laps to figure it out. 19
laps. This is a very, this margin is so much smaller than in the 3 seconds it was before Chad Frankenfield and Ethan Stanley began to battle. I mean, it's closed things up dramatically. And if Stanley and Wadsworth spend any time side by side at all, Mathieu Weeks is going to be right there. So this fight is not over in the slightest. And we'll see what happens as Josh Clark finally does rock to the outside of Ethan Stanley here in turn 2. Stanley kind of rides the bottom lane and is able to clear by Clark, but Clark's going to have a big run down the back straightaway. Can the fresh tires on that 28 car get him around Ethan Stanley? No. Wadsworth is much better in the corners than Clark, but Clark's a little better on corner exit, and that's currently keeping this 28 car between Ethan Stanley and Justin Wadsworth.
Now they're trying to work around the 12 car of the Leighton Norgard as well. Looks like both of those contenders will indeed do so, and Chad Frankenfield will try to also make that pass going through turns 3 and 4. He'll be 16 to go this time.
Scott Crump's like on the back straightaway here, but Clark to the outside once again. That's not going to work. That's too high. That's in the marbles for Josh Clark. That might open the door for Justin Wadsworth to get on by. He's down to the inside of Clark. This is not a battle Wadsworth wants to spend any time on, and it looks like Josh Clark's going to get out of the way of this championship fight. Ethan Stanley, Justin Wadsworth, nose to tail, 3rd and 4th on the track, going for the championship for this season in the Mountain Man 200 with 15 laps to go.
And Chad Frankenfield getting a little bit loose off of turn 2 there, keeps it under control. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on from these contenders as well. How much life do they have in those tires, not just for lap time, but simply control of those race cars? It looked like Justin Wadsworth may be a little out of shape out of 4 that time.
Wadsworth's pushing it. He's trying to get everything he can out of the 6 car to go after his teammate Ethan Stanley. Lake Norman Motorsports sitting at 1-2 currently in this championship fight. And P1 on the racetrack, Scott Crump's dominance not to be forgotten. But, you know, one thing is the team owner, Tyler Fody, running 10th. He is a lap down to race leader Scott Crump in the lucky dog spot for now. But a frustrating night for sure for one of the guys that I probably considered one of our favorites for this championship fight.
Absolutely. You have to say he was one of the favorites. But now we see, you know, all that aside, it's come down to, at the moment, the 91 and the 6. Ethan Stanley, Justin Wadsworth. Ethan, we've talked about all year, the Ethan and Ethan show. Justin Wadsworth, the walk-off at Kentucky to make his way into this championship 4. And here it comes in the final 10 laps or so here at Richmond to decide a championship.
Wadsworth is there too. The car is a little more under control, I think, right now than Ethan Stanley, and he's starting to search for runs, trying to search for ways to go ahead and fight at this 91 car and try and grab that 3rd spot away. Stanley doing everything he can to drive defensively here against his teammate, and these guys know you can't wreck each other for the championship, right? You've got to ensure the team comes home with at least one champion. But Wadsworth, I mean, for the turbulation he's run into this season, to be able to pull it off against Ethan Stanley, who's won 6 times this year, that sure would be a victorious feeling. Here comes Justin Wadsworth down to the inside. I think he was maybe setting it up. He's not necessarily there yet, but he's got the left rear corner of Ethan Stanley's car now entering turn 1 with 9 laps to go.
Big run out of turn 4 for Justin Wadsworth, one of the best we've seen from that inside line on corner exit, and that has put him alongside Ethan Stanley as they battle for the championship. Wreck behind them.
Oh, is that going to be a caution? It hasn't. The caution hasn't flown yet. The caution hasn't flown yet. Wadsworth got into Stanley.
Perfect.
Justin Wadsworth's going to take the lead in the championship. That was right in front of Mathieu Weeks. It looks like Weeks ends up making it out all right. Trey Holmes was the car that got sideways. Justin Wadsworth has the lead in the championship through all of that. I thought for sure we were going to get the yellow flag with 7 laps to go.
I mean, Trey Holmes was sideways on the backstretch, and somehow that did not bring out a yellow, and that allowed that battle to play out. Justin Wadsworth now running 3rd in the race, 1st in the championship.
And Jesse Racimus is going to go put some pressure on Ethan Stanley and allow Justin Wadsworth to run and hide from his teammate. It looks like Stanley might have used up the good in the 91's tires at this point. What a run for Justin Wadsworth, a guy who, you know, I talked about how good he's been all season, but he just hadn't put the results together. Last week, the results all come together, and now he's 5 laps away from a championship.
And you know, right now, all he wants to see is 5 more green flag laps. If he can get that, hit his marks, he's got a clean track in front of him, doesn't have to worry too much about lap traffic. This could be the storybook ending to the 2024 B season for Justin Wadsworth.
Scott Crump way ahead. He's taking the 4 to go mark right now. So Wadsworth needs to continue through 4 more laps. I do want to give a call to Tate Lytle, who ended up switching to that 2-stop strategy. He has risen to 6th. He will probably get Chad Frankenfield before this thing is all said and done and make a top 5 finish out of that 2-stop strategy. Very impressive stuff for Tate Lytle. But as we roll 3 to go, Justin Wadsworth's just hoping for no caution flag. That's literally his the only chance he's got. And we've seen crazier stuff, just like what happened last week for Justin Wadsworth.
I mean, you talked about it, you know, fighting all season for that win, gets it at Kentucky, to punch his ticket. Now 2 laps away from the championship. He's got that lap car, Jesse Racimus, closing in. That doesn't matter.
2 to go there for Wadsworth. The white flag is coming in behind him. Scott Crump has a ton of space between himself and everyone else, and Scott Crump's taking the white flag. That's exactly what Justin Wadsworth wanted to see. He's got a lap and a half to go to get himself a championship. No mistakes from that 6 car, and he'll come home a winner. How about Scott Crump, though, before we get to Justin Wadsworth? He's rolling through turn 4 right now to pick up a checkered flag. If only for Scott Crump, he will win the Mountain Man 200 in dominant fashion. Jonathan Cutlip will finish in second, but it's all about number 6, Justin Wadsworth. From walk-off hero last week to champion in the Elite Belly Up Sports Cup Series, Justin Wadsworth will get it done and win the championship for Lake Norman Motorsports.
What an incredible performance here. Justin Wadsworth, your 2024B Belly Up Sports Cup Series champion.
And there's a lot of congratulations going on. And of course, Chad is going to manage to run into some people on it, but Tyler Fody, teammate to Justin Wadsworth, and the boss there, and man, a lot of congratulations for Justin Wadsworth.
And we spit him out.
Come on, Chad. Let the 6 car go celebrate. He's not okay. Eventually, the 6 car will get to burn it down. He hasn't got to do that a whole lot this season. What a fantastic showing, and managed to run into him like 10 times.
Stop running into the 6 car.
Please leave the 6 car alone. I know you want to give him the congrats. It does speak a lot to Justin Wadsworth's kind of story in this series. You know, he won the Rookie of the Year last year, and he's been looking to improve and find a way to get better, and he's done just a great job of finding the right people to get around. Obviously, Lake Norman Motorsports, one of the best teams in the business here in terms of your driver talent and stuff that you can bounce off of, and Wadsworth just took his game to another level this season, and he's really managed to put it all together, and he comes away a champion, which is not something I was thinking was going to happen going into tonight. Before the race, I called him the underdog, and he's out here winning the championship. I mean, he started it from qualifying. He got there right at the beginning. He qualified second. He was the best qualifier of the championship 4. He ran there all night long, and the race fell to him perfectly, and he's going to take it home tonight.
He's stuck.
He's stuck. Scott, go on, stick him. What a drive for Justin Wadsworth. It's awesome. Let's talk to Jonathan Cutlip.
Scott Crump using the old school Richmond victory lane, though.
Where is he? He's sitting on the front stretch, yeah?
Yep.
Let's go to him. There he is. Yep. Perfect.
Where it should still be, by God.
That's absolutely right. Jonathan Cutlip, it's David in the booth. We're going to talk to some points getters and some champions and stuff, but you were pretty clearly the second fastest car there tonight, and you had a really good drive from 20th up to second. Take me through your night here before we send you off, because we got a whole lot of interviews to go through tonight.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid night. I unfortunately qualified P20, which pretty much killed our race. We just having to make it through that many cars and gain any track position was a killer for us tonight. Had a lot of fun just racing through the field. I kind of just, like I said, wish I had better qualifying effort. Never really attempted a hot lap in practice and didn't really get that much to get a chance to do that. But yeah, it was a solid night.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to call it regret, but, a wish that you'd been able to capture a win this season. I personally am kind of shocked. We've talked to you enough times to where I've thought, surely you had a win in there at some point, but, no. But is there anything you can, look forward to with such a good season?
It kind of varies season to season. Just really don't get the lucky breaks that you kind of need at sometimes, but as far as next season, it's pretty much up in the air. Nothing is laid out clearly yet. So hopefully sooner rather than later we get some things, set and see where things are at before Daytona in a few weeks.
Gotcha. Well, any shout outs for us tonight before we send you off, John?
Yeah, thanks to Race EPI, my teammates here at Field Up Racing. Trey was really fast tonight. Unfortunately, he didn't get the finish he deserved. He was really quick with us there. He turned up in the second half of the race and was going to easily finish top 5. But yeah, shout out to him. Vander Merrill getting that win at Atlanta was a cool moment for all of us. Personette, it was a huge year for him. Like getting married, that was cool to see. A few of us were at his wedding. Shout out to Casey Hatch putting this all together and trying to keep himself sane as far as managing all of us. And shout out to my mom. She watches every one of the races and she's always cheering us along, and she just has a good time watching us. And shout out to you guys, David and Zach, for getting to call these races. I know some of these are rough at sometimes, and I know it can drag out. It feels like that as a driver sometimes, but it's fun for the most part. And shout out to Wadsworth, dude. I've seen him in ARCA. He, started putting things together, and just, watching him grow into the eventual Cup champion is just so cool to see.
Awesome. Well, thanks, John, and congratulations on P2 tonight. And we'll see you next season. And I think for sure we'll be talking to you again. And I figure a win's on the way, buddy.
Yeah, we'll have to see. See you later.
John Cutlip, our runner-up, and let's grab race winner Scott Crump as well. And Scott, that was a dominating performance by you, man. We kind of always have talked about you being the king of Richmond, but that was kind of another level. I think you led like 170 laps or something.
Yeah, I just love this place. It's all about just find that one groove that you want to find and just hit it and just I don't know, just I love this place.
With a car this good, Scott, I mean, obviously you had the advantage of being out front when it came to those green flag pit stops, but what was kind of your mindset approaching that pit cycle when it became clear we were going to have that, as far as how do I not give this away in that aspect of the race?
Yeah, I was just thinking, just please don't have a caution anywhere. Just get back to the lead, and then the caution come out after I get to the lead. I'll be fine with that. But yeah, I was just hoping and praying the caution didn't come out. I was super safe on pit entry. I didn't want to get no speeding penalty or anything like that, so I was super safe there, and just really managed my stuff and was kind of easy around lap traffic the last 60, 70 laps or so.
And Scott, I kind of asked this about John too, but we knew the Richmond was the championship race. A lot of guys pointed to you and were like, if he gets to the championship race in the playoffs, that's your champion right there. Any thoughts, any moments you could have back this year that you were kind of hoping could maybe change your fortune and put you in the champion seat?
I don't think I could have done much different. I've been wrecked a lot this year, so that definitely was a cause of it. And then if I wasn't wrecked, just got on the wrong side of the cautions and stuff like that. So just a lot of bad luck and stuff this year. But I definitely had this year's circle since Richmond was a championship race. I won Truck Series in Richmond, run Xfinity at Richmond, so I was hoping I'd get Cup at Richmond, but didn't happen. But Justin Wadsworth pulled it off for Lake Norman tonight, and so that's awesome. I think it was almost a sweep. We got Xfinity and Cup, and almost got the trucks too.
Any thank yous and shout outs for us, Scott, before we send you off?
I guess shout out to my team, Lake Norman Motorsports, putting up with me all year. They all had good seasons this year. I think I was the man back, waiting back, but hopefully this win here give me some momentum for next year. And get a shout out to my grandfather watching, wife watching, her having to deal with the kids while I'm racing and stuff. So it's pretty awesome of her to let me do this. Yeah, give a shout out to my sponsors, Stay Tuned Sports Podcast, Blue Egg Marketing, JD Designs, Jonathan Cutliff does an awesome job on our paints. And yeah, give a shout out to y'all up in broadcast booth. Shout out to Chad for running this league, making it happen. Yeah, we look forward to next year. Is glad to get the last win of the year this year in 2024. So that's pretty sweet. So hopefully the momentum carries next year and make a deep playoff run next year and be in the Final Four and maybe get that cup championship.
Sounds good. Well, congratulations on the win, Scott. We expect the shot video, obviously, and we'll see you next season.
No, it's coming. All right. Thank you.
So, race winner Scott Crump. Let's grab champion Justin Wadsworth. And Justin, congratulations on the championship, man. Take me through your emotions on that final run.
I mean, dude, I can't even put them into words. I am just so friggin' pumped right now. I mean, what a run. I feel like you guys had me as the underdog all week, and rightfully so. But that just kind of pushed me to practice more and, really kind of find a little bit of edge that I thought I could. And like I told you before the race, I felt like qualifying was so important, and I think I had my best qualifying of the season. And then Weeks was on my bumper. I don't know how many laps, but it felt like forever. And I was just doing my best to kind of keep him behind me because I knew if he got around me, it'd be just as hard to pass him back. So, yeah, just so excited right now, guys.
I mean, what a 2-week run this has been for you. The win at Kentucky to put yourself in this position and to capitalize. You mentioned the qualifying out front and how crucial that ended up being to play out in this race. And then, of course, to chase back down Ethan Stanley, make the pass late in the race for the title. I mean, how do you put this 2-week run into words?
I can't, man. Like I said, I've been putting in the work and the results are showing. But I mean, these guys, as you know, they're all fast. The guys in the top 4 and most of the guys in the playoffs are, pretty fast guys. So I knew it was going to be tough tonight. Like you said, I needed to qualify up front and kind of hold Weeks off. And I think he kind of burned up his stuff a little bit trying to get around me that second half of the race. And I was burning mine up pretty good too. And I was worried about when I caught Ethan, if that 10 lap difference would have just been up in smoke from fighting with Weeks for so long. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was able to get around Stanley with, I don't know, 5-10 laps to go. And then just kind of, you get your fingers crossed the whole time. There's no caution. And then, and it worked out, right?
What was the communications like between you and Ethan Stanley there coming to the 20 laps to go or so when you guys started battling for the lead?
Honestly, nobody said a word that entire race. Not a single one. I mean, Scott maybe said a couple things, but I mean, we were locked in, and then especially when you and Ethan were battling, I didn't say a word to him because I knew, it's, you reach this race, and we're on Lake Norman together, but it's every man for themselves in a sense. I'm not going to wreck him to win by any means, but I don't expect him to move over for me, and I wouldn't move over for him, not in this situation. So I knew he was going to race me hard, and Ethan's been the class of the field all season, as you guys know. But I mean, he was super psyched for me after the race too. Everybody on the team was, and I know they probably were a little disappointed, but for them to to be happy for me and congratulate me, it means the world really, and all the other people that have reached out. It's just been such an amazing experience for sure.
Well, any shout outs or thank yous here for your inaugural, first cup championship tonight, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a long list that's kind of got me here. First and foremost, it's gonna be my dad. He's been with me since the beginning. I remember I started in Elite in the truck series, and he would kind of crew chief for me, and we would, kind of work through it and kind of figure out strategies. And he watches every single race I do, whether it's the Cup Series, Xfinity, the special event on Saturday. I mean, he's with me the whole way. He even, he's even the guy I talked to when I was thinking about joining Lake Norman. He's just been kind of my rock through it all. And then I got to thank my girlfriend, Jill. I mean, she's been amazing too. I think last week I raced every day but Sunday last week. And she's so understanding, so supportive. I think she gets just as excited as I do when I do well, and just as disappointed when we have those frustrating nights. So shout out to her. Shout out to Lake Norman. They've been great the whole way. Showed a lot of class with us racing tonight. And then shout out to the rest of my family. Mom's been watching this season as things have kind of picked up. My sister, my brother, and kind of to have all that support just means the world. I mean, it's so cool to have all the drivers reach out to me, but then my family's blowing up my Twitch chat. I'm getting all these text messages. Some of my friends even tuned in tonight. And big thanks to you guys. I said it last week, but I feel like you guys focused on me quite a bit this season, and it's so cool when I go back because I watch every one of the races. I even watch the races from the season prior if we're racing at that track to try and learn something. And you guys have been so kind, and it's so nice to kind of hear that in that atmosphere, where I'm not in the room per se, and you guys have only had nice things to say about me. And then thank you to Chad too for putting it all together. I know it's a hell of a burden with all the series he runs. I don't know how he keeps up with everything and tracking everybody down, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure I forgot a few people. And then lastly, actually, I do want to mention Jonathan Cutlip. He has kind of been the guy I've leaned on the entire time I've been an elite. He painted my first truck, and I've reached out to him almost every week ever since for tips and track notes and kind of how to drive the car sometimes or how to save tires. He's probably been my biggest mentor through it all, especially when I was independent racing by myself. He's been a huge help, and he knows that, and I've thanked him many times, but he deserves a big shout out too. So thank you to everyone, really.
Awesome. Well, my final thought, Justin, is when you were upside down at Mid-Ohio, did you think it was going to result in this?
No, and I don't know that I've ever been so mad at iRacing other than that night, but I did think it was kind of funny when I was doing kind of the victory lap there, and Chad spun me out one last time before the season was over. So
That's perfect. Well, congratulations, Justin. A really strong season for you, and we've covered it from pretty much beginning to end, and it was a great journey, and we appreciate it. And go celebrate, man. It's awesome, and yeah, congratulations on the championship.
hell yeah, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.
That will round out the 2024 Elite Belly Up Sports Cup Series season. And what a journey it was. There was a lot of fun moments from Ethan Burrell finally nailing down the Daytona 500 to Justin Wadsworth winning the championship here in Richmond. It's been a long season, but it's been a fun one, Zach. And we get a break, we get a holiday. Hope everybody enjoys those. But are you ready for February?
Oh man, I mean, already. I mean, can't wait. First off, again, have to congratulate Scott Crump on just an absolute dominant performance. And you saw him in the background here during Justin's interview, getting one last celebratory burnout in. But look, as far as Justin Wadsworth mentioned it during his interview, how tough this series is. And I've had some conversations this year off screen, and I've told guys, look, there are guys that have won races in the Elite Cup Series that are Coke Series drivers now. And there are guys that have won way more Elite Cup Series races that just, for whatever reason, whether it be free time or resources or whatever the case may be, you're never going to see them in the Cup Series. But if you're going to race for wins and championships in Elite, you're going to have to do it against those guys. And those are the guys Justin Wadsworth beat for this championship. And now, when we talk about those guys, Justin Wadsworth is one of those guys now after tonight.
Yeah, it's a great way to put a bow on this season. So I'll leave it there for David Huckleberry, our wonderful producer. Thank you for everything you've done for us, Dave. I've enjoyed working with you this year and looking forward to 2025.
We're going to have a great time. I've already got stuff lined up and take a couple weeks to break, and we'll be back.
And for my co-announcer, Zach, appreciate you every moment of the way this year, man. It's been good, and I feel like we have a good rapport, and I'm looking forward to 2025 with you, man.
I'm going to get this no math thing in writing before next season, though. I promise.
Gotta get it in your contract, right? And I'm David Westergreen, and that was the 2024 Belly Up Cup Sports Cup Series season, the championship race. We'll see you guys in 2025. Everybody have a good holiday and a happy New Year.